The goal for our project was to continue research on the game Chinese checkers, completed by Bell and then Fonseca, in which they worked to optimize two-player and three-player games, respectively. We used principles from these games and developed our own variations in order to approach the question of a six-player game.
Chinese checkers is played on a star-shaped grid. The goal for each player is to move their army from their base to the goal, which is the opposing player base. To move their men, a player can step, which means to move a man to an adjacent cell, or a player can jump, which is to move their piece on the other side of an adjacent piece. A player may move multiple jumps in a row to move as a chain in a single turn. A turn is considered a movement by a player, whereas a round is when each player has one turn. In order to move most efficiently, a player should move in a chain as often as possible, which can be done using the movement structure known as a ladder. The first work we did was to establish our own graphical representation of the playing board. While Bell and Fonseca each used a Cartesian board, constricting the player movement, we chose to use a Cartesian overlay. This allowed for the armies to have more intuitive movement while losing some potential matrix representation capabilities. To identify each location, we used modified chess notation and identified each player base since we would be working with all 6 players. Since we made our own coordinate system, we also had to develop and prove our own norm for the board. The formula is treated as a piecewise function. The first case when x movement is greater than y movement, and the second case when x movement is less than or equal to y movement. In order to prove the norm, we consider 4 cases: horizontal movement, diagonal movement, the combination of horizontal and diagonal movement, and the combination of diagonal movements. The last 2 cases are shown as cases 3 and 4 respectively.
Like Bell, we found that the board has 4 different location types, or as he refers to, man types. These locations are distinct as a man may only jump to a cell of the same type. Consider the 4 full cells in the picture shown in the corner of the screen. Because jumping requires skipping over an adjacent cell, no man in one of these cells may jump to the others. We have also labeled a single base and given it numbers 1 through 10 for each piece. There are 2 key points that this will help us try to optimize collaborative games. First, opposite bases have identical location types. For example, the bases at the top and bottom of our graph each have 3 blue locations, 3 green locations, 3 yellow locations, and 1 red location. These colors have groupings 1, 4, and 6, 3, 8, and 10, 2, 7, and 9, and 5, respectively. This means that if a player takes a step, which would change the location type of one of the men, they are obligated to take another step. Secondly, we may see that a ladder built using green and yellow locations may be traveled on by red and blue locations, and that a ladder built using red and blue locations may be traveled on by green and yellow locations.
After considering an absolute lower bound of 9p plus 1, we used a more realistic lower bound, 9p plus c plus 1, where p is the number of players and c is the number of moves it takes to build a successful chain. A successful chain is a chain that allows a player to move a man from a cell in their base to a cell in the goal. There are 2 successful ladders we considered: the 5-rung ladder and the 6-rung ladder. The 5-rung ladder requires the placement of 5 rungs. The 6-rung ladder, however, requires only building 4 rungs, and using 2 pre-existing rungs from the pieces in the base and the goal. In our video, you will see both ladders.
Throughout the game, the orange player, located on the bottom, will act as the winning player. They will spend the game moving their pieces across the board. The red player, located across from the orange player, will spend the game emptying their base. The remaining players will work in pairs to build 4 ladders. We begin with movement from the blue player. In the first 2 rounds, the blue and yellow player will construct a 6-rung ladder for the orange player to move pieces 1, 4, and 6 from their base to the goal. Meanwhile, the purple and green players will work on a 5-rung ladder for the pieces located at points 2, 7, and 9. Here, we see the orange player move their first piece into the goal, working on the 1, 4, 6 location groups. Blue and yellow, having completed their first ladder, begin construction of the second ladder, which will move the piece from location 5. Purple and green continue to build the 2, 7, 9 ladder. This move by yellow completes the ladder for piece 5. From this point on, yellow and blue will offer minor support to red and orange, and make some useless but obligatory moves. You will see a noticeable increase in the speed of their moves due to their relative unimportance. At this point, Orange has completed moving the pieces for the 1-4-6 group. Because of the recent completion of the 2-7-9 ladder by Green, Orange will begin to move these pieces next. Now, we can see Purple and Green begin construction of the 3-8-10 ladder, while Orange places the 2-7-9 group. At this point, Orange has completed moving the pieces for the 2-7-9 group. As well, Green's most recent move completes the ladder for the 3-8-10 group. From this point on, Green and Purple will take useless obligatory moves and have a noticeable increase in speed. On Orange's next move, they move the piece from location 5, which is a group of 1. Throughout the remainder of the game, we can watch as Red empties the rest of their base, while Orange fills the 3-8-10 group, which is the final group. And now, we see as Orange moves the final piece into the number 10 location.
Our 66 move game is an example of the sort of game we would expect the lower bound to look like. Following our formula, we might expect to see a lower bound of 63, where C is equal to 8. However, running into difficulties at this move count, we instead conjecture the existence of a 64 move game. In the future, we would hope to see more work trying to find the value of C for games of the player counts. Here are our references, and thank you for listening to our research.